I got Yusuf to send written statements about my mother and brother's visit. Then Barrister Tunde found something else. Someone had tried to contact the land registry through an agent, asking whether the building could be transferred quickly after the old owner's death. The problem was obvious. The old owner was not dead. He was very much alive, though living quietly in Ibadan. That meant my family had either been lied to by somebody, or they were planning something even dirtier than I imagined. I still thought maybe Emeka was acting alone. I was completely wrong. The next clue came from my camera. On Sunday afternoon, while I was at church, Ada entered my apartment with a woman I did not know. They used an old key that no longer worked, then called Emeka, who arrived 20 minutes later. He brought a locksmith. The three of them walked through my home as if inspecting a hotel room. The unknown woman measured the curtains, checked the wall color, and took photos. Later, I learned she was Chisom's aunt. They were planning wedding arrangements inside my home without my consent. I watched the video 3 times. At one point, Ada opened my wardrobe and laughed. She held up one of my plain dresses and said, "No wonder nobody notices her." The woman replied, "At least the place is in Lagos. We can work with it." Emeka then said words I will never forget. "After the wedding, she won't have a choice. Mummy will handle her." That sentence hurt more than the loan papers. I had fed these people. I had defended them. I had covered their shame. And they spoke about me like furniture to be moved. Barrister Tunde advised me to wait a little longer. He believed there might be forged tenancy papers or even fake consent forms somewhere. If we moved too early, they might destroy evidence. So I waited, though each day felt heavy. Then another surprise came. Mr. Hassan called me from Ibadan and sounded disturbed. He had received a message from a man claiming to represent my family. The man said I was under pressure and wanted to resell the building secretly. Mr. Hassan knew at once it was a lie and forwarded everything to me. The contact name attached to the message was Emeka's friend Stanley, the same man who had dragged him into 2 failed businesses. Now the picture was clearer. My brother was not just trying to borrow against my identity. He was trying to create a full story where my apartment would become his marital home, and the building itself might later be sold or leveraged if he found a way to seize my documents. My mother probably believed he was only securing a home. Ada likely thought she was helping family appearances. But Emeka wanted much more. Still, one question remained. How did they think they could force me out so easily? The answer came through a printed document that appeared under my door 2 days later. It was a typed notice from a fake legal office. The notice claimed the building had been sold to a redevelopment company. All existing tenants, including me, were to vacate within 30 days. It looked official at first glance, but the letterhead was wrong, and the registration number belonged to a different firm. They wanted me frightened and confused. They wanted me to leave quietly. What they did not know was that I had spent years studying fraud patterns for a living. I called the number on the notice using another line. A young man answered and introduced himself poorly as legal consultant. When I asked technical questions, he stumbled badly. Barrister Tunde traced the office address. It was fake. I thought that was the end. I was wrong again. The biggest clue came from my father. He visited me alone one evening, looking older than I remembered. He sat on my small sofa and avoided my eyes. After a long silence, he asked whether I had truly promised Emeka the apartment after his wedding. I said no. He nodded slowly, then pulled out a folded paper from his shirt pocket. It was a draft family agreement. According to that paper, I had voluntarily gifted my Surulere apartment to Emeka and Chisom as a wedding blessing. The document already carried a version of my signature. My father's hands shook as he held it. He whispered that my mother had asked him to sign as witness, but something felt wrong, so he refused. That was when he realized I knew nothing about it. He said he was sorry. He said he should have spoken earlier. He said he had spent too many years choosing silence over truth. I looked at my father and felt both pain and pity. He had failed me often, but for once he had chosen honesty. That paper became the final piece we needed. Barrister Tunde moved quickly after that. He arranged a formal meeting at my apartment on the day my family planned to come with Chisam's relatives for small introductions after church. He also contacted the bank, the police fraud unit, and Mr. Hassan, who agreed to join by video call if needed. Security officers were placed downstairs quietly. Yusuf had all visitor logs ready. My camera footage was copied. The fake eviction notice, forged gift agreement, loan papers, and messages were arranged in one neat file. I said very little that morning. I cooked jollof rice and fried plantain because I did not want drama before truth. They arrived dressed in bright smiles and expensive fabrics. My mother looked proud. Ada looked busy. Emeka carried himself like a man already in control. Chisum and her aunt walked around my apartment with that same measuring gaze. One of them asked whether the walls could be broken to open the space. I simply served drinks and let them talk. Then Emeka cleared his throat and announced that, with family support, he and Chisum would move in immediately after the wedding while future property plans were being finalized. He said it as if I had agreed. My mother added that I should stop being selfish and think about family honor. Ada said I could always rent somewhere closer to work. That was when the knock came. Barrister Tunde entered with the two security officers. Behind him came a bank compliance officer and a plainclothes police officer. Nobody understood yet. Then the lawyer looked at me and asked, "Madam Neka, would you like this discussion to continue privately, or should we clarify ownership now?" I said, "Please clarify it now." He opened the file and placed the certified documents on my small center table. "As the registered owner of this building," he said, "Overclient has reported attempted fraud, forced entry, forgery, and impersonation." That was when all sound left the room. My mother blinked hard. Ada stepped back first. Chisum stared at Emeka like she was seeing another man. Barrister Tunde explained everything calmly. The building title, the purchase agreement, the company registration, the bank loan attempt using my documents, the fake gift document, the false eviction notice, the attempts to contact the former owner, the camera footage, the caretaker statements, the locksmith visit, the forged signature samples. He did not raise his voice once. He simply laid truth on the table, piece by piece. When the bank officer confirmed a loan had been attempted in my name, my mother started crying. She said she did not understand everything. She said she thought it was only for wedding preparation. The police officer then asked whether she had signed the guarantor section knowingly. She could not answer properly. Emeka tried to laugh it off at first. He said it was a misunderstanding. He said families share things. He said I was overreacting because I was unmarried and bitter. That was the last foolish thing he said that day. Barrister Tunde pressed play on the camera footage. Everyone watched Emeka walk through my apartment with the locksmith. Everyone heard him say, "After the wedding, she won't have a choice. Mummy will handle her." Nobody defended him after that. Even my mother covered her face. Then Mr. Hassan joined by video call and confirmed publicly that he had sold the building to me 2 years earlier. He also confirmed that someone linked to Emeka had approached him dishonestly. Chisam's aunt began asking sharp questions. Chisam started crying quietly. My father sat down heavily and stared at the floor. I said only one thing. I helped all of you because I loved you, not because I was foolish. Nobody answered. The silence in that small living room felt heavier than any scream. The consequences came naturally after that day. The bank opened a fraud case. Because I chose not to destroy Emeka completely, I agreed first to a formal restitution process, but only under legal supervision. He had to sign an admission regarding the false application. The police kept the file active in case he defaulted or repeated the offense. Chisam ended the engagement within a week. She told my auntie on the phone that she could not marry a man who planned his future with lies. Her family demanded the return of several introduction gifts. That public shame hurt Emeka more than any police warning. Ada stopped calling me for months. Later, I heard her husband had confronted her for joining the plan. He told her she had risked their own family name for greed. Their marriage did not end, but people close to them said trust became thin in that house. My mother suffered the hardest private fall. For years, she had used Emeka's charm as proof that her way of raising children was right. Now she had to face church friends who heard whispers about forged papers and a broken engagement. She called me many times, crying, apologizing, praying. I listened, but I did not rush back into old patterns. My father came to see me again. This time he did not ask for peace at any cost. He asked for forgiveness, and he meant it. I told him forgiveness would come slowly, but truth had already started healing something inside me. As for the building, I finally began the renovations I had delayed for too long. I repainted the walls. I repaired the water system. I changed the railings. I upgraded the security lights and installed proper cameras downstairs. I turned the empty rooftop store into a laundry space for tenants. I reviewed every lease myself. For the first time, I stopped hiding my progress. Not to impress people, but to honor my own work. At the office, I was promoted 6 months later to senior audit manager. My director said I had unusual calm under pressure. I almost laughed when he said that. If he had met my family, he would know pressure had trained me for years. With that promotion, I saved more and started a small property management company on the side. I focused on old middle-class buildings that needed structure, honesty, and patient leadership. Women especially trusted me because I listened carefully and kept clean records. I also changed my personal life. I stopped answering every emergency call with my wallet already open. I started asking questions. I started saying no without long explanations. I visited my parents when I wished, not when guilt pushed me. I paid my mother's medical bills directly to the hospital, not through family hands. I helped my father with groceries, but I no longer financed Emeka's dreams. If he wanted a new life, he had to build it himself. 2 years later, he sent me a message. It was short. He said he was sorry. He said losing everything had forced him to see himself clearly. He had found steady work in a logistics warehouse outside Lagos. He was renting a room and trying to stay disciplined. I did not reply immediately, but for the first time, I believed change might be possible. Pain had done what advice never could. Today, when I sit by my window and hear tenants laughing downstairs, I remember that afternoon in my little living room. I remember the mockery. I remember the silence after truth entered. Most of all, I remember the woman I became that day. I used to think love meant endless sacrifice. Now I know real love must include respect. I used to think being calm meant staying quiet while people crossed my lines. Now I know calm can also mean standing firm without shouting. Family is not the group that feels entitled to your sweat. Family is the people who protect your dignity when you are not in the room. I still believe in forgiveness, but I no longer confuse forgiveness with access. Some doors can stay closed without hatred behind them. That is not bitterness. That is wisdom. And if life has taught me anything, it is this. Sometimes the people who laugh at your small room have no idea you are building the whole house. Sometimes the quiet person in the corner is carrying the strongest truth. And sometimes, losing the version of family you hoped for becomes the first step toward finding real peace. I changed the lock that same evening and installed a small security camera inside my living room and near the entrance. I did it quietly. Years of auditing had taught me one thing very well. People reveal themselves fastest when they think you are unaware. I was right. The betrayal came faster than I expected. On a Friday afternoon, my bank called to confirm a loan application under my name. I had not applied for any loan. The officer asked if I had requested a facility for 10 million naira through a microfinance partner. My hands went cold, but my voice stayed steady. I said no. I asked them to freeze the process and send me the application copies. When the documents arrived by email, I sat in my office restroom and stared at them until my eyes burned. The payslips were mine. The ID copy was mine. The signature looked almost like mine. The stated purpose of the loan was interior finishing and household setup. Then I saw the address listed under beneficiary occupancy. My apartment. My own brother had used my documents to apply for a loan to furnish my home for his marriage. The money itself hurt, but not as much as the assumption behind it. He truly believed my life was available for his use. He believed my hard work was community property. He believed my silence meant weakness. And the worst part came at the bottom of the application. Emergency Guarantor Acknowledgement. Rose Okafor. My mother knew. I sat there for a long time, staring at her name. That broke something inside me more than Emeka's fraud. A brother could be reckless. I had seen that for years. But a mother should not help one child steal another child's future. I did not scream. I did not call anyone. I did what I always did when pain became too sharp. I gathered evidence. First, I called the bank's fraud desk and requested a full audit trail. They confirmed the application came from a business center near my parents' home. They also had CCTV access through the branch partner because some paperwork had been submitted physically. Then I called my property lawyer, Barrister Tunde Afolabi, the only person who had handled my purchase documents from the beginning. I told him everything. He advised me not to confront anyone yet. Instead, he asked me to secure all building access records and any message from family members regarding the apartment. So I did. I backed up my text messages with Emeka. I saved Ada's voice note asking whether the house papers were ready. I exported call logs. Then things started feeling strange. My mother began calling more often than usual. Her tone became sweet in a way that made me uncomfortable. Ada started asking casual questions about my apartment. How many rooms exactly? Was there parking? Did the landlord live nearby? Emeka suddenly wanted to visit me after ignoring my last 3 calls. Something was moving behind my back. I felt it before I could prove it. The first clear sign came when I learned I had not been invited to a family meeting in Enugu. My cousin Ifoma mentioned it by mistake during a phone call. She assumed I already knew. She said they had all gathered to discuss Emeka's wedding introduction and living arrangements after marriage. Living arrangements. Those words stayed with me. When I called Ada, she laughed too quickly and said it was nothing serious. My mother later said they did not want to disturb me because I was always busy. That answer made no sense. They disturbed me for every smaller thing. A week later, Emeka called. For the first time in months, he sounded respectful. He asked if he and his fiancée Chisom could stay in my apartment for just a few weeks after their church wedding while they searched for a place. I told him kindly that my apartment was too small for 2 extra adults. He became cold immediately. He said I always acted like I was better than everyone. I apologized for the space, but not for the boundary. Then he said something that made my stomach tighten. Mummy said the place would soon be available anyway. I asked what he meant. He laughed and ended the call. I did not sleep well that night. The next morning, I checked the building records with Yusuf, our caretaker. He hesitated before speaking. Then he admitted that Emeka had visited 2 weeks earlier with my mother. They had asked many questions about vacant units, rent amounts, and whether the owner was old or sick. They had also asked if my flat could be prepared for newlyweds. Prepared. That word made me feel cold. I still said nothing to my family. I wanted facts, not guesses. 3 days later, I found my spare key missing from the kitchen drawer. Only family members knew where I kept it. That was when I knew the matter was deeper than gossip. My family mocked my tiny apartment. They went silent when they learned I owned the building. The lawyer stepped into my tiny living room and asked if I wanted my own brother removed in handcuffs. For 1 second, nobody moved. My mother still held her teacup in the air. My sister's mouth stayed open. Emeka, my younger brother, looked at me like he had never seen me before. Even his fiancée, who had spent the last 10 minutes laughing at my apartment curtains, suddenly stopped smiling. The room had been full of noise only seconds earlier. They had mocked my small sofa. They had complained about the narrow hallway. They had asked how a woman my age could still live in a box when I worked in a good company. My sister Ada had even told me I should be ashamed for inviting respectable people into such a place. Then the lawyer came in with 2 security officers behind him. He held up a file and said, very calmly, "Madam Neka, as the registered owner of this building, you have the final say." I heard the words clearly, but my family did not. They looked from him to me, then back to him again. My brother's face lost all color. That was the moment every lie in my family began to crack. They had come to take something from me. Instead, they learned I had been the one holding everything together all along. And they still did not know the worst part. Everything changed because of that one moment. If this story touches your heart, don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone you care about. My name is Neka Okafor. I was 32 years old then, and I lived in Lagos. I worked as an internal auditor for a transport company in Victoria Island. My job was not glamorous, but it was steady. I checked records, followed money trails, and noticed small things other people ignored. I was the kind of person who looked twice before signing any paper. I was careful with numbers because numbers never lied, even when people did. People who met me at work thought I came from a peaceful home. I was always calm. I dressed simply. I spoke softly. I finished tasks on time. I did not borrow money. I did not chase trends. I packed lunch from home even when my coworkers ordered expensive meals. Many of them thought I was too serious. Some thought I was too quiet. The truth was simple. I had learned very early that peace was expensive, and I could not afford to waste mine. I earned a decent salary, but I lived below what people expected. I stayed in a one-bedroom apartment in Surulere. The building was old, but clean. The stairs were narrow. The walls needed fresh paint. The water pump made noise some mornings. Still, I loved the place because it gave me room to breathe. I had dreams bigger than my living room. I wanted security. I wanted my own business one day. I wanted to build something that nobody could take from me with guilt, tears, or family pressure. I wanted a life where I could sleep without fear of sudden calls asking for rent money, school fees, hospital bills, or another rescue for another adult who refused to grow up. I believed in hard work. I believed in honesty. I believed in helping people. But I also believed that help should not become a chain around your neck. It took me years to learn that lesson, and when I finally did, it almost broke my heart. I came from a family that knew how to take without calling it theft. My father, Chike Okafor, was a retired secondary school teacher. He was a quiet man with tired eyes and a gentle voice. He loved peace so much that he often sacrificed truth to keep it. My mother, Rose, was different. She cared deeply about what people thought. She believed appearances could cover many sins. If outsiders praised the family, she slept well. If neighbors talked, she panicked. I was the first child. Then came my sister Ada, 2 years younger, beautiful and dramatic. After her came Emeka, our last born and the golden child of the house. If Emeka smiled, my mother smiled. If Emeka failed, somebody else was blamed. If Emeka wasted money, my mother called it youthful mistakes. He was 30 then, but in her eyes, he was always a promising boy who just needed one more chance. That one more chance came from me many times. I paid part of Emeka's university fees when my father's pension delayed. I sent money when he wanted to start a phone accessories business. That business failed in 6 months. I helped again when he joined a friend to sell imported sneakers. That also failed. Later, I covered a hospital bill after he crashed a borrowed car and disappeared for 2 days. I helped Ada too. When her husband's business slowed down, I quietly paid her twins' school fees for 1 term. I sent money for groceries during the lockdown years. I bought my mother blood pressure medicine more times than I could count. I fixed the leaking roof in my parents' house in Enugu. I did these things quietly because I did not like announcing my kindness like a market seller. Nobody thanked me for long. They only remembered me when there was a problem. If I delayed, I was called proud. If I asked questions, I was called difficult. If I refused, they said city life had changed me. I still kept helping because I loved them, and because I kept telling myself family was family. My mother had another habit that hurt me more than I admitted. She compared me constantly. Why was I not married like Ada? Why did I not wear gold like Ada? Why did I not drive a better car? Why did I not move into a finer place if I worked in Lagos? She never asked what I was building. She only asked why I was not displaying it. I let her talk because arguing with my mother was like pouring water into sand. Nothing stayed. Nothing changed. What she never understood was that my simple life was not failure. It was strategy. 5 years before that shocking day, I met the owner of the building where I lived. His name was Mr. Bamidele Hassan. He was a widower in his late 60s. He lived in Ibadan and rarely visited. Most tenants only knew him through the caretaker, an older man called Yusuf. I first met Mr. Hassan when I helped him review some unpaid rent records during one of his visits. He was impressed that I noticed several accounting errors in minutes. That meeting changed everything, though I did not know it yet. Over time, we spoke often. He was tired. His children lived abroad and had no interest in the property. The building needed repairs, but it still earned steady rent. One evening, after I helped him sort a dispute with a former tenant, he told me he wanted to sell the place quietly. I laughed at first. I was just a tenant with careful savings, not a rich investor. But he said something I never forgot. People think ownership starts when you become rich, he told me. Sometimes it starts when you become disciplined. He allowed me to buy the building through a private payment plan. The price was far below market value because he trusted me and wanted a smooth handover. I used almost every bonus, every side consulting payment, and every sacrifice to meet those installments. I sold a small piece of inherited land my grandmother left me. I stopped traveling. I stopped buying things to impress anybody. I drove my old Toyota until the door handle came loose. 2 years before the family gathering, I completed the final payment. The title was transferred into my company, in KM Holdings Limited. I told nobody at home. Not my mother, not Ada, not Emeka. I knew them too well. If they heard I owned a building, they would stop seeing me as a daughter and start seeing me as an opportunity. So I kept living in my same one-bedroom flat, paying myself rent on paper for clean records, and slowly planning renovations.